Defensive mode engaged. Annihilation mode. Pyroclastic surge! Incinerate! Try and stop me! Activated Light of the blazing sun! Switching gears. Full throttle! Cleanup sequence initiated. Annihilation mode. Bring it! Letting brave names echo!
The meta of today and the meta of yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how we arrive at absolute meta slop. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. We're talking about a Malwika overvape team with Shilinen and Benefa. It's pretty straightforward actually. We're balancing the high off-field DPS of Benefa with its buffing capabilities for someone like Malwika. From Benefa we have the Serenade set as well as her ult in order to give Malwika around 300 EM. This is further buffed by Ascendant Gleam from someone like Columbina. Then we also have the Red Shred from Shilinen, and we potentially have a scroll buff, but this pretty much never works for Malwika in this team, so we're kind of giving it to Benefa, which is kind of meaningless. But there is at least some damage percent coming to Malwika via the Peak Patrol song buff, at least for me. Then of course there's C2 Shilinen, where the attack buff for Pyro characters is working for Malwika's DPS. The HP for Hydra characters is of course working for Columbina's DPS, and then there's also the cooldown and energy for Electric characters. That means that Benefa can ensure that I can use her ult pretty much every rotation. Like I mentioned, the scroll buff doesn't seem to work that well for a team like this because it's really difficult to have an underlying Pyro aura when you have something like Benefa just constantly pumping out the Electro aura instead, or the Lunar Charge aura anyway. I did briefly try an Instructor Shilinen build just to see if that would work, but for whatever reason, despite the higher EM on Malwika, and I think by extension Benefa and Columbina, I still ended up with slightly less DPS somehow, and I don't really understand why. Folks seem to want a Simulacrum run just to see what kind of DPS I can get out of this team with my level investment, so here we go.
Light it up! Ultimatum protocol. A new moon rises. Pyroclastic surge!
While we're watching this, I do want to point out that with the amount of EM that I'm getting from Benefa in particular, an attack sound on Malwika does in fact make the most sense. Now, due to the difficulty of making something like the scroll set work, it does seem to me that this is one of those rare opportunities where a Pyro Cup is actually stronger than an attack cup for someone like Malwika. Although, that being said though, for the rest of the B-roll, I actually didn't have this epiphany until a little bit later, so it's not actually in most of the B-roll, it's only in this Simulacrum run. Meanwhile, of course, this is with my R2 Benefa and my R1 Columbina, so just, keep in mind, your mileage may vary.
Preparing for dust-up. Light of the blazing sun! Incinerate! Incinerate! Annihilation mode.
with my ping as well as the fact that I'm using a Hatsune Miku mouse. But I can't seem to do any of the sweaty combos, and honestly, even if I could, I don't think it's going to amount to all that much because you do have that half unit Hydro Aura coming from Lunar Charge, so you probably can't handle any additional Pyro application at this point. So any additional DPS I'm getting out of that is really just Mawika's Pyro hits just reacting with nothing more than like a no aura, or hell, even maybe some extra overload damage, and that's about it. Or even worse, some forward vape Columbina shenanigans where we all know Columbina doesn't really do that much damage from her Hydro app at the very least. But with my level of Sweatlord gameplay, I think I managed to eke out around 10k additional DPS as opposed to just donutting and moving on. What's kind of hilarious about this absolute meta Slop right now is that it seems to be performing either on par or just slightly under my otherwise currently strongest team, being my Navia LC squared. I wonder if part of the reason for that is because I have the axe on Navia while I'm currently using an R5 Wolf's Gravestone on Mawika. This is of course a weapon that famously gets shafted by the Simulacrum, since I can't actually get its passive to proc properly, at least the actual full passive that requires a target to have less than, I believe, 30% of their health left. What I will say is this: in practice, if the Gravestone passive manages to activate in some way, shape or form, then this absolute meta Slop should be by definition my strongest team now. What I'm not so sure about is whether this is necessarily Mawika's strongest team. It is doing a smidge less DPS than Zajeff's Mawika Melt team, which I believe involves him using Tidal Shadow, and probably not R2 signatures though, so maybe that's a strong enough reason to suggest that Mawika Melt is still a little bit stronger. I'm also not confident in calling this the strongest Lunar Charge team either, as I don't really have any idea if this should be stronger than, let's say, a similarly invested standard Flynn's team at this point. Flynn's mains, let me know how much DPS you're getting in the Simulacrum and how much investment you've actually put into your team. But as it's half of the meta from before and half of the meta from now, I am pretty sure that if you really can't beat something and you just need to brute force it in some meaningful way, shape or form, chances are absolute meta Slop can probably handle it. Unless, you know, it's something like the current Stygian Mandragora boss where overloads and the lack of grouping pretty much cook you all the way through. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Give it a try, see if you like it. That's pretty much it. Look, it's a strong team and it's meta, I guess, so yeah, there we go. Alright, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact action. Maybe not as meta Slop as this, hopefully. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
That's more like it's countdown. Decaying world!